Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Making Light Two Humans Being. I'm Julie here as usual with Kate Foggo, my colleague and partner in Making Light. I was going to say crime, but no, that's not a Making Light thing. So here with Kate Foggo. And today, at this point in time, we are going to be talking about joy. And where it takes us, we'll find out. But right now, we're going to be talking about joy. So I wanted to talk about it, Kate, because a couple weeks ago when we were doing an episode, you were talking about, or in a separate conversation somewhere along the line, you had talked about, you went into your kitchen and in that moment, you just had like this pure feeling of bliss. And so we've kind of come back to that a little bit. And as I've listened also to Abraham Hicks podcasts, that moment when you're feeling that type of joy and that type of bliss, that's when you're perfect alignment with what you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to be, where you can manifest a lot of things. So we thought that might be a good place to start. So how does that sound?
Perfect. I would have to say it's been a lot longer than a couple of weeks since I felt that. And that's the thing, you feel this, and because it was when we were still having sessions with our teacher Danielle, because I remember telling her, I was doing nothing in particular, absolutely nothing. I was just bobbling around, minding my own business, and it just washed over me. And you're like, on the one hand, it's wonderful. I think, as I said at the time, on the other hand, you're like, I want more of this. This makes me see how much of the rest of my life is such a struggle. And the fact that you can't put your finger on why it happened, and you can't recreate it, and it's so elusive, and then it's gone, and you're like, but I want that. And it was so profound in the sense of the clarity and the difference. Just, it was like taking drugs or something like that, in that it was more than just a contentment. It was like I had taken something, some sort of happy pill. Not that I've ever found a happy pill that did that. I mean, when I was on antidepressants, people who call them happy pills, I don't know what they were on, because I never got any of that. They just stopped me crying, but they didn't make me feel anything. I just felt this overwhelming okayness, peace. Beautiful. Probably only lasted a few minutes. I was just standing in the kitchen. nothing, wasn't triggered by a beautiful scene or anything. But it, on the one hand, it gave me huge hope. On the other hand, because obviously, as we know, I like to make things difficult. You start beating yourself up, going, well, why can't what how do I make this happen more? Do you remember what Danielle said?
I don't actually remember what she said about.
She just sort of nodded as if this is to be expected. And as in the work that we're doing, although me especially, and I think you as well, are always looking for evidence. We're looking for hard evidence of what has changed, looking for evidence in our behavior, and looking for us reacting differently to situations, which we do. I think, but it's probably not as obvious and profound as we'd like, but that actually changes are happening. And when you get these moments of peace and clarity, that is evidence that, things are shifting for you, even if you can't wrap your hands around them, grab them and hold them close to you. The fact that you can achieve that state, albeit fleetingly, means things are moving for you.
Yeah, I would even go maybe another step forward with that thought, because when you're in that moment, there's also like, and not to, because I don't want to remove myself from that presence and being present in that moment and experiencing it. The ability to create more of it is also about, to me, also about becoming more aligned with what we're supposed to be doing, whatever anyone is supposed to be doing, and everybody has a role on this planet. The one thing that I have started to kind of play with is when I have those moments, because with this move, those moments of joy have not been as frequent as they had been previously, because as we
you have had them. See now I'm jealous. See, I'm too human. I'm like, what do you mean? How many? How often? When?
Yeah, and so, well, that's a really good question, because that's how I've been trying to like experience or understand what it is in that moment that's helping me get the joy, which is then to me alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing. And when you said that day in our session, it reminded me of, there would be these little moments when I would be walking a dog, or I would be walking actually into where I worked at the time, and I would hear a cardinal, a little red bird call, or I would just have this little moment of the sun was shining through the leaves. And as I look back, it always had to do, they typically happen when I was outside and I was interacting with the natural environment. The other thing though, that just recently happened, because like I said, it's hard, it's been tough. This move's been really tough. And I'm in my new little office space right now. And I was laying on I have a carpet, and I was laying on this carpet that somebody sold me for not a whole lot of money. And it's lovely. It's more than I would ever like typically do. And I absolutely love it. But I was laying on it. No one was home. I think Brad had taken Lucas. And I'm just like, I felt like such peace and calm and joy, because I actually realized I've never had my own space since I've left my single dorm room at Michigan State University. I think every place I've been, I've always had to share the space. I've never had my own. I may have had my own closet, but I don't like to sit in closets. It's not my thing. But I just had my own space, and I'm like, oh.
There's so many jokes in that comment, Julie.
Yeah, I know. And I don't mean them against anybody, but anyway, yes, closets. Never mind, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, but just being able to have my own space. And so I thought, oh, like I was able to connect almost to the joy, I guess is how I want to say it. I was able to connect to the joy. Oh, I have my own space finally. I can breathe. And this space makes me feel really good. So even as my husband's already talking about, oh, what are we going to do in the next chapter? I'm like, I don't know, but I like this room, and whatever this is, I will replicate this. I will have some place of my own, kind of a thing. So anyway, but that to me, that's the opportunity, is to be able to replicate it, get in touch with what is it about that moment that makes you feel aligned.
See, with mine, I wasn't, maybe that's the point. I wasn't doing anything. I was literally, I mean, I was probably in the middle of something, but it would have been some mundane daily task and just walking. I mean, I love our kitchen. See, what's funny about this house, I mean, people think it's just fabulous. And that's not to say I don't love it, but it is not what I expected to move into. And it was Gary who was completely wooed by it. But all the elements that I had in my head that I wanted in a house, actually it does have, just not in the way that I saw them. Like I wanted to be able to stand at the sink and look out, and actually I can overlook the whole of the valley standing at my sink. Oh. You know, but it because it's a modern house, and in my head it was going to be a wooden stone, you know, cobbled together out of cow dung and big trees in Africa. That's, you know, that's sort of, unfortunately houses like that don't really exist in the UK unless you can build it yourself. You know, sort of game lodge in Africa. That's the sort of vision I had. But actually the vision I had in my mind was me standing at the sink, or not, it wasn't at the sink, but standing in the kitchen and being able to see out onto beautiful. And I can. So that's what I'm saying, all the elements that I wanted are in this house, just not in the form that I had visualized them. So maybe the key was that I was not doing anything. I know I need to do more of that, but I'm, as we discussed last week, struggling with the how do you not?
Yeah, I know. I have a list a mile long, and it ends up being 9 o'clock at night, and can't keep my eyes open, and I need to go to bed. And I do. I'm just like, you know what? In the idea of self-care, as we've talked about, which is also a driver and a way to find your joy, but in the effort of self-care, it's like I need to sleep now. So I'm just, and it will handle itself in the morning, and somehow it does. I giggle. I'll say this throughout the day. We're kind of going into self-care, but that's fine. I giggle throughout the day because I'll start the day going, oh my gosh, look, my schedule's packed, and oh, I need to get I try to make a small to-do list. And invariably on those days when I'm like, appointments will cancel or reschedule. And it's like, oh, thank you, universe, for opening up my day. That happened yesterday. I was supposed to talk with somebody at 4:00 and I could use that last hour to finish something. And she texts me just before. She's like, oh, I just had a meeting pop up on my calendar. I can't talk. And I just start laughing.
But that means what I see that as is actually you're not because if you were more things would come into your calendar.
Yeah, true. And I feel like it's more, maybe because I notice it's more and more like when I see that the day is packed and I'm just like, all right, well, I'll do what I can do. Like I'm learning how to shift. So it's not that I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? My list, and I got to reconfigure and freak myself out. It's like, yeah, I'll do what I need to do. Like last night, for example, working on a website for a client, my husband and I together are working on a website, and he realized that the way he wanted to do it isn't going to be, it's not going to, the platform's not going to work that way. So he spent 2 hours at least figuring it out and muttering and being all upset. And I was listening to a webinar on Hildegard of Bingen, which, by the way, another topic, super fascinating.
Do you want me to put that on the list?
You can put that on the list. Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm just so.
What's it?
Hildegard of Bingen. Fabulous woman from the 12th century. Anyway, we'll come back to that. So I'm listening to this. It's an 1.5 hour lecture. I'm absolutely enthralled by it, having moments of joy because I feel like in those moments, I'm like, this is what catechism should have been like, not the school that I went to. Like, oh my gosh, like now things make sense the way that we've been talking about in Be Open and, the community that Danielle has. Anyway, so I'm having this wonderful little time over there, and Brad's struggling with this website and he's trying to get my attention, and I wasn't going to, I'm like, you do you, I'm hanging out with Hildegard, and then he came to bed and he was all freaked out about it. And I said, just put it aside. I will look at it in the morning. Nothing's going to happen now. And so already I've emailed the client. I have a plan of action. There you go. Oh, and the daycare for Lucas called me yesterday and said, I have an extra spot for today. Would you want to do today as well? I'm like, why, yes, that would just free me up more. And I have to go pick out countertops for our new kitchen in an hour. And that just helps. I don't have to keep them in a hot car. This all works. So I'm not saying it's perfect. See, now look, I'm going to degrade it. It works.
Good.
It's perfect.
Right, now bring it back to joy, Julie.
Oh, sorry. Joy. Yes, but see, and that creates just joy because it's, one that just makes me giggle, right? Anytime any of that type of stuff happens. That's just
I actually see, that's it. The ego is so determined to ignore signs, because I have had things that exactly as you say, where I'm like, oh my God, like something that would freak me out, that, I've got this schedule of I can't remember, it was when the septic tank was going to be done, but the guests were going to be here at a certain time and it was all beautifully timed. And I'm like, I cannot control this, whereas before I still could not control it, but I would have been sitting there freaking out about, oh my God, get it. This all depends on you being here, like, no, and getting all freaked out. I am a lot better at just going, I can't control. There's still a little pitter patter, but I don't obsess over it as much.
Yeah.
And then it just fucking happens. Mm-hmm. Ding, 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 ding. And I just wipe those from my mind. Like, it's only you saying that. But there have been times I've gone, fuck, like that could have been an absolute disaster. Instead, it was a pleasure. Yeah. The guy shows up, I have a really nice chat with him. The septic tank doesn't overflow, and he drives away and the guests were out anyway. Things like that, all the things that in my head could potentially have gone wrong, which I really don't obsess over now, but I still would have been anxious about the timing of it all. Mm-hmm. And they do just happen. And I think, there's no way I, Kate Foggo, could have controlled that. There just isn't. There was too much that I had no control over. And yet it all actually worked out absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. There was saying that I had written on my notice board at work, and I don't know who the fuck wrote it. It drives me crazy. Pretty sure it was an English or some author, an author that did literature, that is the sort of literature people study in schools. But it was something to do with, and I know this isn't an original quote, but it was something to do with how much wasted time we have worrying over things that never come to pass. But it was, you know, I know it's a common theme, but it was just so well written, and I have Googled for it to try it because I had just stumbled across it. But it's something like, oh my, if I had a penny for every, you know, moment of agony I've had worrying over things that never happened. It was something like that, and you're just like, oh my god. So my point is that actually I do have these moments, and I just disregard them because they're gone, and I hold on to the drama and the thing. But the other thing I was going to say is this joy I felt was more than just being okay. It was like being high. You know, it was almost like a chemical difference. And I was thinking, and the thing that hit me afterwards was, it's like there's something wrong with me, that if I can achieve that, what the fuck is wrong with me the rest of the time? You know, because it was such a stark difference. You know, because people who talk about depression, so I've had depression, I had a burnout. I don't really understand what the difference is, but you know, and they talk about chemical imbalance in the brain, and so, and I was on antidepressants. As I say, those antidepressants stopped me crying. They didn't make me feel any better. They just physically stopped the sobbing, but they didn't, you know, they stopped me dissolving into tears every time somebody addressed something with me. But I didn't feel high or even okay. I didn't notice any emotional difference at all. I just wasn't as neurotic, I would say. But this was like, have you ever had poppers? Probably sharing too much, but I when a friend of mine was at, I think it was Leeds University, irrelevant, at university, and she had poppers, which actually I think are legal. So poppers is it amyl nitrate? And it used to be used a lot for, I think, in sex. I think it heightens the orgasm or something. So I think it's legal. I don't think people take it so much, because it's literally, what I remember about it is you just have like, it makes me giggle even thinking about it, you have literally like 3 or 4 seconds of just this incredible high, like incredible high. You just giggle your face off, and then you get a pounding headache and it's over, you know. But it's just like such a, and it wasn't that sort of high what I felt, but it was just that lifting of everything. I want more.
Euphoric feeling.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when I've had that, because even when we are, you know, we typically will meditate before we reach out to or, you know, begin an animal communication or intuitive coaching session. And for me, when I'm meditating and getting into that space, I'm getting to that higher vibration, euphoric, like my head feels like it's buzzing. It's a little different than joy, but it feels along the same plane. If I think of it in terms of up or down, like it feels more higher vibration than.
Well, love is, according to Abraham Hicks. No, this isn't Abraham Hicks, actually. This is the universal. I used to carry it around with me in the days that I used to muscle test my vibration constantly. So you have acceptance at 350, reason at 400, love at 500, joy at 540. Peace at 600, enlightenment at 700. So I think when I meditate, I get to peace, but not peace that's higher than joy, but more a calming rather than a joyful feeling. It's more just a
stilling of the waters. And is that the same scale that's in the Power versus Force book?
I think it is.
Okay.
This is, or maybe not. There's hundreds of them on. I think in the Power, I could tell you Are you interested?
Yes.
Because Abraham Hicks's is slightly different. And they say like the words don't really matter because actually everybody has slightly different understanding of all the words, you know, as in what one emotion means to you. So they have energy 100, yes. Fear, desire, yes. Anger 150, yes, I think it is the same. Courage 200. Neutrality, so that's the first positive one, is 250. So actually, for the benefit, am I rustling around too much?
I can hear the papers turning, but that's,
For the benefit of people who don't know what we're talking about, this is your vibration, shall we say, and the higher your vibration, the better you feel. And most emotions,
right? It's a scale of consciousness is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, as referenced in Power versus Force by
David R Dr David Hawkins.
Yep.
So then we go to willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and then 700 and above is enlightenment. Abraham Hicks, they are slightly different, and they don't associate a vibration with them, they just call it a vibrational scale. But out of interest, let's see what my vibration is allegedly, because I used to test my vibration all the time. And it was typically 500, 540. But then my sister said to me, yeah, but you're not happy. It's like, but I'm in love. I'm in love. It says I'm in love. I'm in love, teetering on joy. Teetering on joy. She's like, well, you don't seem very joyful. So, okay, so let me ask the question. Using the scale that we've just described of where...
And for those watching, she's going to muscle test. Just in case you're not familiar, she's muscle testing where she plots on the.
So it's important that I ask the right question, and I will reference a question with where love is 500, and it's a scale that Dr. R Hawkins uses because there are lots of different references. Using that reference, what is my vibration now? Is it more than 400? Yes. More than 500? Yes. Yes. More than 600? No. Is it more than 5? So actually, that's the other thing. Is it my vibration right this minute or my average vibration over a day? I'm going to ask what it is right at this minute. More than 500, more than 540, no. More than 510, yes. More than 520, yes. More than 530, no. 5. More than 525, no. 5. So 520, 521, 522, 523. Do you want to know what yours is?
Yeah, but what does 523 equate to?
Between reason and it's between love and joy.
Okay.
So using the same scale, what is Julie vibrating at? What is Julie vibrating at this moment? More than 500, more than 550. So now I feel competitive.
Yeah.
More than 550, more than 600, 550. More than 580. So that's a no. More than 570, yes. 570. 580, more than 580, yes. More than 590, no. More than 580, 590, more than 585, yes. 586, 586. So you're at joy, quite close to peace.
Oh, good. I feel that. I feel
good. Yeah, and now that I've told you that, you've probably gone up another couple of notches. But well, much I loved this book in some ways, I also did not like bits of it, because he was talking about that actually the consciousness of humans, even moving like a couple of points, is huge. And yet I know when I used to do this a lot, I would sit there and my sort of go-to image, I think I've told you this, of trying to make myself feel better would be my chickens when their asses in the wind and all the feathers are blowing and they just look really, I can look at that and sort of have a little giggle to myself and I'll be at joy. If I test myself right there and then, I can, you can literally test your vibration immediately and it'll be at joy. So
that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Huh. I liked that book too. I did like that book. I think for me, it was, I want to say enlightening, but that's not the right word, but it was illuminating that from generation to generation of human beings, our consciousness is only going, if we're lucky, a point or two. And I'm just like, oh, because at that moment there was a lot, when we were reading it, there was a lot of, I'll say negativity. I mean, there still is a lot of negativity in the world, but there was a lot of negativity in the world.
Well, we had COVID, and we had all the Trump elections, and then we had the Black Lives Matter, wasn't that at the same time or not? I can't remember.
Yep. I mean, there was a lot there. You could just feel, you could see a lot of the energetic things that were moving, and a lot of it was weighing a lot of us down. And it was before there was some big shift in January energetically. I could go back and look at what all everything was, but anyway, but I could see, and I thought, oh, this isn't, the shifts that we're hoping for are not going to happen necessarily in our lifetime, but we are here to begin to embrace those shifts. So that to me was enlightening, as far as not putting all the weight on my shoulders, which I would typically, and to some degree still do, because I still believe I can change the world, which I still believe I can, because my role.
See, I disagree. I think that we can,
Mm-hmm.
because what's the world? The world to me is the people around me. I can make huge changes. I mean, look,
yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about, when we talked about joy, and you said about Abraham Hicks and people being unhappy in their jobs. I mean, do you want to talk about how you finding your joy or moments of joy is affecting Brad? I don't know if you're prepared to talk about that or not. Or
I can talk about, yeah, I mean, well, I hope it, yeah, I think it's effective. I can, sure. So yeah, well, I can go all the way back to last summer. We're coming up on the year anniversary of me being let go from my job, which was a career in advertising that was over 20 some years old. And I took a lot of pride in it. But it wasn't a very good situation where I was working. It was a bit of a toxic environment. So, but we're coming up on the anniversary. And so I've been actually thinking lately of all the changes, because I remember when it happened, our wonderful community was super supportive, and with all the gifts gifts that my ex-boss gave me, as far as things to begin to work on with me and to find new things. And we've gone through so much together, our whole community, where we've gotten our some certifications, we've started to really market our businesses, and there's just all of this, a lot of shifts, as well as continuing to work on who we are, what we're here to do in this lifetime, what's our sole purpose, and aligning with that. And so as I look back, I'm like, I can't even imagine going back into an environment like that. And in this time frame, my husband has watched these changes take place as well. And so he is becoming more and more open to wanting to go through the intuitive coaching process that we offer to our clients. And we're also we're going to go do another class to get a final certification here shortly. And so he wants to go through it as a patient, not of mine, but of somebody within our group, so that he too can experience some of these shifts when you begin to understand where the negative beliefs come from, how you actually employ things to work around them so you don't experience the pain, but how to let go of it, or work through it, I should say. Anyway, because he's finding himself again in a situation where he's not happy. There's no joy. He feels sick to his stomach when he needs to go into work every day. And that's just not, I know how that feels, right? You know how that feels.
I do. Yeah.
Life is so short, and it's just not worth it. So he's trying, and I can see some opportunities for him to figure out some things. And we've talked about it. He needs somebody that's not as close to him as I am to be able to help him. So that's what's going to happen instead of coach.
So before this, say you said a year ago, before that, would you have had those discussions with Brad?
No.
Would he have, because the stage that Gary's at, although he says he's accepting, he gets very upset when I tell him that he's not supportive, because he just makes fun of me. But that's his way. I mean, it's not exclusive to Why do you have to tell you this? I went to see a friend yesterday. And anyway, they have a dog, and he's not a new puppy anymore. And her husband was saying that he was eating his own poo, and he gets really upset by it. And she's going, well, apparently it's quite common with dabs and whatever, and we just have to supervise him, but let's not get upset about it. To condemn the dog because he's eating his own poo. Like that. And I said to him, look, anything like that is making you emotionally react to that, I said, he's probably teaching you something. And I can't remember the words he said, but he basically said, what a load of bullshit, Kate, or something like that. And I said, excuse me. We may not have met recently, but do you know this is what I do for a living now? And he's like, really? You're fucking joking? It's like, what a load of crock. And I was like, Steve, I'm serious. I said, this is what I do. I said, if you care to go and look at my website, you can read all the things that my clients have to say about that. But basically, so that's fine. He obviously didn't realize, and anyway, I don't know, maybe he just didn't know. Like, Gary will make fun of me, and he gets very upset if I say he's not supportive, but he thinks this is all nonsense, basically. So there's the fact that Brad would even consider, if I talked to Gary about it and I said, do you not think it would be helpful for you to maybe work on, look at the reasons why you get so upset about these things, and he's just not interested.
Yeah,
he'll just make a joke about the fact that he's as highly evolved as he can possibly be, and and that he's much more enlightened than I am, and he doesn't need help. Thanks.
I don't know. I feel like because of COVID, we were together, Brad and I, in the same house. And we worked for different agencies, but we had similar clients. So we would actually collaborate within the confines of our house and then go back to our agencies and our clients. So there were and we've worked together in 4 other jobs. So we've had a long career together. Anyways, but I think because of COVID, and he heard me going through classes and he heard me going through the coaching sessions. And then he watched some of the shifts being made, and me calming down and, letting go and not being so frantic. And then also with the Course in Miracles, adjusting to looking at things, which I've typically always done, look at something from someone else's shoes, if you will. But A Course in Miracles is all about not love versus fear, but you can choose love or you can choose fear, basically, in the simplest of terms. And so looking at how to constantly choose from a place of love, it also brings a peace and a calmness too, to me. So I think he sees this, and then he wants it too, because he realizes in the last 2 or 3 years, he used to be really big. And we got Lucas. I broke my leg. He had to walk Lucas all the time. He lost a ton of weight, and he feels, I think for the first time in his adult life, really good physically. And I think that's also beginning to see like other things are happening. And so I know it just all kind of worked. But I do think that the COVID stuff kind of exacerbated him wanting to do more things, because he could hear me doing the work. And he, if he didn't hear me doing the work, and he didn't hear me doing the work with clients either. That's the other thing. He'll hear an animal communication session, and he can sometimes, I don't ever have somebody on speaker, but if I'm practicing with one of you guys, in our community, he's just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, well, that's how it works. So I don't know. He's just had exposure to it. And maybe that's a thing. Maybe Gary just needs to watch.
Well, I've offered him to look at stuff, but he's not interested. So
yeah. No, Brad doesn't want to hear A Course in Miracles. And he did listen to Hildegard of Bingen last thing. He's like, you can turn that off. I'm like, no.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I have to switch off my stuff when he comes in.
Oh.
Not down here. Get to play my own shit down here.
So anyway, finding joy, moments of finding joy. I hope this helped, because I feel like you have chickens, just RuPaul's Drag Race. Like, look at those moments of joy, which I get.
Yes.
The thing that you experienced, but yeah, I can see
that. No, I have plenty of moments of joy like that, but it was that
moment of clarity too. Yeah,
it was just fabulous. I have had it once before. We can discuss it. I have had it once before when I was probably in my 20s, and it was more a feeling of, oh my God, everything's okay.
Wow.
And I think that was my first awakening of knowing there was something just out of reach that could make everything okay. I just couldn't put my finger on it. Mm-hmm. Definitely had it once before. But that's it. But I suppose the message is, we don't always get those beautiful moments. I should be extremely grateful that I had that clarity, but actually it's not measurable. I think that's the thing. It's like I'm looking for signs. I've had a couple of readings because I've been a guinea pig for we're helping people with their 201 sessions. This is people who are learning animal communication. So Maria and I are helping them, testing them before they go on to do their certification. So I've had a couple of really good readings, like some fabulous readings, but and I've had a few readings in the past where people keep saying you're close, out of nowhere they'll go, I sense you're much further along than you think. Not I sense, I'm not allowed to say that, are they? The guides are saying you're much further along than you think. I have had these messages from complete strangers who are reading me, but I'm like, oh, I want that fizziness, I want that, poppers high that I maybe it will come.
Yeah, no, I personally, to me, you're just so funny and so witty, and my husband's calling me, you're so funny and so witty. Like, those are moments too, I think, where there's
laughter, because that's it. If you test your vibration when you're laughing, through the roof.
Yeah, we're making light. It's what we do.
Is that our wrap up?
That's our wrap up. Look how I did that.
That's amazing. Yeah.
All right, so that, I think, right, that's our episode this week of Making Light, Two Humans Being. That's Kate Fago that's been talking and sharing lots of fun, and this is Julie Hirt, and we will see you next week with another topic that we will probably go off the rails with, but that's okay. It's what we do because we're making light, two humans being. See you next time.